a little over 500 years. And that's what I want to point out. About 1,000 years of just two dynasties, self-reliant, more or less peace and tranquility, and moving in the directions of technology and medicine. They were very self-sustaining. But this one started with King Yu at the time of really the Mongols doing their thing. They were fighting the Ming Dynasty. So that battle had started. King Yu wanted to fight on the side of the Mongols. He sent out his troops, sent out his generals, and General Yi decided that's not a good idea. He wanted to side with the Ming Dynasty, so he came back, created a coup, overthrew the king, eventually killed the king and his son, and started Joseon Dynasty. So, over that 500-year period, there were about 26 kings, all of them. You don't have to actually. So what we will do is point out the more or less the most famous king or leader of Korea, which is Sejong the Great. He had about a 32-year reign. He did a lot to push Korea really just, light years ahead. So he established the Korean Peninsula as we know it now. If you remember what we showed a second ago with the Goryeo Dynasty, you're missing that top, more or less that top right side of Korea. And once he took over, he established the Korean Peninsula as we see it today. He also advanced science, literature, Chinese medicine, technology. He really was just about the innovation and the ingenuity of the Korean people. And another great thing that he did was he created the Hangul alphabet. Has anybody ever seen the Hangul alphabet? Yeah? Okay. Fine. Good. Fantastic. Okay. Well, up until that time, if you think about it, if they started in 1500, let's say they started in 1500 BC, that's going to be about 2,500 years of using just Chinese text, just the Chinese alphabet. So this was a huge, huge change, and I think we all understand the importance of language within a country. Well, I'm not going to say, whoa, I think you understand what language is. And that in itself is an identity maker for a people, having their own alphabet and having their own language. So this was huge. The admiral. This is the next one. Now, he wasn't a leader. He was not a monarch. He was not a leader. But he's probably my favorite, Korean. I would say he's my favorite Korean. As far as anything, the admiral, it's coming up August 15th, about 4 years ago. So what it is Yi Sun Shin was a great admiral who fought in the late 16th century. And it was during the time when the Japanese were trying to get to China. Now, at this time, Japan had already moved up into Korea. They had conquered Seoul and Pyongyang, as we know today is the capital of North and South Korea. And so they were sending a fleet up along the Korean peninsula. Well, Yi Sun Shin, we'll go ahead and move on to this, the Japanese invasion. Yi Sun Shin had already struggled, things were not going very well for the Korean people during this war. But Yi Sun Shin had, as historians said, about a dozen ships, and he had to face down the Japanese fleet, which was somewhere between 200 and 300 ships. Now, the thing with Yi Sun Shin is that he understood the landscape. He understood the waters close to the Korean Peninsula and how dangerous they were, their currents, their tides, everything. He used this to his advantage, and eventually, with just a few ships, defeated the Japanese fleet. The Japanese retreated, and that was more or less the end of that war. So he's a great, great wartime hero. And his statue is next to King Sejong. in like more or less the middle of downtown Seoul. So we're moving on. We've got the Manchus. So this started, as I had said, there was Ming Dynasty, Qing Dynasty. There was a continual changing of hands, changing of the guard. And so this took place. And as you can see on this map, you see how huge the Qing Dynasty becomes? I mean, it is taking up just about everything up to India and then next to Russia. You do see the little nation that is not in yellow, yes? Yeah. What nation is that? Yes, that's correct. Korea. All right. Thank you for whoever didn't say anything. However, during this time, the Koreans decided they were going to support the Ming Dynasty instead of the Qing Dynasty. Well, this time wasn't the right move, but it all worked out. The Qing Dynasty, however, won. They also defeated the Koreans, but from that, they experienced 200 years of peace. I think I sort of went over this, but I need you to understand the relationship between China and Korea over thousands of years. It was not a fight between the two. It was a good relationship. China received tributary. They were their protector, and Korea saw China as its protector. So it was a really good relationship that they had for a very, very long time, and it was done through tribute. And Korea was always, according to China, considered an independent nation. It's a big, big thing. Now, we're going to get into the meat of how Korea has become what it is today. It's the crumbling of the Joseon Dynasty. Now, as we discussed, isolationism, the hermit kingdom, was Korea. They wanted to just be self-reliant. They wanted to have their relationship with China and really with nobody else. Very anti-European trade, very, very limited trade with Japan, and really just no outside interference. But the powers that be, how many of us know about really the 19th century and what all that entails? Not just America. Globalization was really beginning. Industrial revolution had really started. And so we have a situation here in 1866. Korea was still practicing very much isolationism. And however, you have France, you have the UK or Britain, you have America, you have Russia, you have Japan, you have China. You have these countries that are becoming powers. And so in 1866, the Koreans, who only wanted a Confucian religion, well, the Catholicism and Protestant movement began to take place in Korea. And at this time, they more or less said, okay, that's enough. And they killed 9 French Catholic missionaries. And along with that, they killed about 10,000 Korean Christians. And so freedom of religion was non-existent. And at this time, when the French heard about this, they decided that they would attack. And so they went to an island, they fought in an island, Gangwon Island. It did not go very well. They had to retreat. But that continued another decade of isolationism within Korea. 1871, with the General Sherman gunboat incident, America tried to get onto the shores of Korea. That didn't work out so well. And that's something that you need to understand, is that the military might of Korea was good. They were not pushovers. If you study their history, they were definitely not pushovers. They weren't a large country, but they were very, very capable militarily. 1876 is the Treaty of Gangwon, which I consider to be more or less not the end of Korea, but the beginning of the end of Korea. We'll get to that in a second. The Brits occupied Yeoman-do, which was an island close off of Korea, and the Russians started to occupy other places. So the Brits decided, okay, well, let's not cause them more trouble. They left, and the Russians went ahead and retreated as well. But the Treaty of Gangwon, the unequal treaty, what this was a treaty between Korea and Japan. And an unequal treaty, probably rather self-explanatory. But one country gets the better end of the bargain. So, the Treaty of Gangwa was more or less, let me go back. The Treaty of Gangwa was more or less, I want to make sure that I don't leave anything on this out. The Japanese had recently signed an unequal treaty with the U.S. about 20 years prior. And what it was in trade, America got the better end of the deal. So Japan did that to Korea. They got the better end of the trade deals. And really, Japan forced Korea to open up its borders for Japanese and European trade. And like I said, this is more or less the beginning of the end of this. So what were the results of this treaty? Well, extraterritoriality for Japan. If you don't know what extraterritoriality, I can hardly say it, so it's very difficult to know what it means. What it means is that Japan was under its own jurisdiction, even in Korea. So more or less, it could abide by its own rules, even being in another country. So this created a lot of corruption within the Korean government because you had really two sides, some that were pro-Japanese and many that were anti-Japanese. So corruption began, and it sparked some rebellions. It sparked soldier rebellion, and then it sparked a peasant rebellion that was huge. So relationships still continued with the Qing Dynasty in Korea. So the Qing Dynasty sent 3,000 soldiers, more or less save off this peasant rebellion. The Japanese, seeing that, decided, well, let's quell this, and they sent 8,000 soldiers to more or less push out the Qing Dynasty.